This is our COVID Roundup and CDC update for December 6, 2024. Starting off, we're seeing that XEC, this lime green, is increasing quite rapidly, while KP3.1.1, our previously dominating variant, is now decreasing quite rapidly, where XEC has now become the dominant variant in the US, making up 44% of all variants by proportion, meaning that XEC will be our driving variant for the 2024 COVID winter wave. And then for the breakdown of our COVID variant landscape, we can look over to Raj's COVID variant tracker, where from the last reporting week to the current reporting week, we have a decrease in the KP2 family, a decrease in the KP3 family, and we have increases in XEC and the MC family. And as a reminder, the MC family, or MC clade, are direct descendants of KP3.1.1, where they're currently going through diversification, meaning that the next dominant variant could possibly stem from this family somewhere. But at least for the next few months, XEC will certainly dominate. Moving on to the Walgreens test positivity tracker, it's important to note that we've started heading back up again in terms of test positivity, increasing from about 12.5% to 13.5% positivity. But the thing I really like about this is the map over here, because it shows us some of the general spatial patterns that are occurring in terms of increasing or decreasing test positivity. And generally what we see in terms of COVID spatial patterning is that it starts over in the east, it moves through the middle of the country, and then it spreads up and down. Where from this map, we're starting to see that it's starting to spread upwards and downwards. And when we look to the CDC's epidemiology tracker, we see a similar thing. So technically we're still in that early stage where we're moving from the east through the center of the country. So I think once it starts to hit the west coast is when we're going to start to see that huge expansion up and down throughout the entirety of the US. That's typically when we get that boom where it's everywhere at very high levels. But in good news, we finally have our first report from Medicare and Medicaid services giving that respiratory index spread. So as a reminder, up until the end of April 2024, virtually all hospitals were required to report COVID hospitalization numbers. Then once that became voluntary, there was a huge drop-off in data reporting. And then November 1st, Medicare and Medicaid services required this once more. So from a numbers view, this started off at about 95% of all hospitals reporting. It dropped down to about 34%, and currently is sitting at about 90%, which is still 5% lower than we had prior. And from the most recent data, we know a few things, that for any given hospital, about 70% of all beds are full by patients. And of those beds being filled, about 1% are COVID patients, which is nearly 3 times that of people with influenza and about 2 times that of people with RSV, showing from the relative scale that COVID is the much more severe disease out of the 3, at least at this current time at the start of the respiratory illness season. But as a reminder, COVID is an all-year-round illness, it's not just a winter illness. But for now, this is essentially what we know, and as I dig more into the data, I'll try to provide more insights. Next, moving on to New York State and their wastewater surveillance map. And as a reminder, anything that is dark blue is low levels of COVID in the wastewater, anything that is light blue is moderate levels, and anything from yellow to bright red is high levels of COVID in the wastewater. And currently New York State is sort of at a relative low, with only about 29% of all reporting wastewater facilities reporting at the highest levels. Next, moving on to wastewater scan and the 28 reporting wastewater facilities to California. California is still in this atypical and unusual lull. But it's important to note that even though they're in a lull that is at a quote-unquote low, that this low is higher than the previous lows of other years, so it's not really that low. And finally, looking over to the 148 reporting wastewater facilities to wastewater scan in the US, we're starting to see early signs of the increase of our winter wave. So if you follow my head, we had a constant for a while, and now we're starting to have a bit of an increase, meaning that COVID illness spread is likely increasing right now.